Okay, we're live. We're ready to go.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Albany Public Library Board of Trustees, May 14th, 2024 meeting. I'd like to do a roll call, please. Kristen?
Trustee Kirsten Brzezinski.
Trustee Robinson.
Trustee Arlene Way.
Trustee Paige Barnum.
Trustee Sarah Dallas, Vice President of Finance. Is there public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you. I'd like a motion to accept the consent agenda. It consists of the minutes, the operating check register, and the capital fund check register. May I have a motion?
Trustee Brzezinski motions to approve the consent agenda.
May I have a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. May we have the treasurer's report, please?
Good evening. The reports for this meeting cover March of 2024, which was 75% of the way through our 2024 fiscal year. The support and revenues were slightly over the modified budget. Fees and sales and interest income continue with trending over budget from prior months. Pilot payment is under the modified budget due to receiving less than expected this year. Our expenditures were 73% of the modified budget, with similar trends from prior months continuing between the cost categories.
Okay, just a couple notes on the reports. We're still seeing positive trends with our national grid bills. They total just under $13,000 in March compared to just under $17,000 in March of 2023. And then also I just wanted to point out that on the check register, there were several lines that represent the over 600 tax refund checks that were processed since the last board meeting. And actually with the last remaining checks scheduled to go out tomorrow, that will complete the process of refunding the 600 seniors. So that's good news for me. Thanks. If anyone has any questions, happy to address this.
I just want to thank Erica Catalano and Adam Stump for their work in getting all those checks out in a timely way.
Help me out. Do we have to make a motion to approve these? Okay, thank you. Capital fund report?
We don't typically present each one individually, but if there's questions on any of them, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Can we do the committee and liaison reports, please? Trustees, anything you'd like to report out and share upcoming events?
Yeah, I can report out. I attended the final documentary screening associated with the WMH Indylands pop-up series at the Pine Hills branch. The film was The Tuba Thieves, and it was presented by, or I should say, filmed by a filmmaker who comes from the hard of hearing and deaf community. The event, I believe, also had a translator at it, which was, I think, a really nice accommodation and compliment to the event. So I'm excited to hopefully see them back next year. It's a grant-funded screening series, and it's, over the course of the series, which I believe started in December, always covered a wide variety of social issues from housing insecurity, climate change, women in media, to health matters, such as Parkinson's or the deaf community. So I think it's a really admirable series, and I'm glad that staff has shared that opportunity with us. And next year, hopefully.
On a race.
I do want to race.
I was just going to report that I attended the blood drive that they had here at the Washington Avenue branch. I thought that like this just seems like such a perfect place to host that. And I'm curious how the turnout was for that. Did you have a lot of people that signed up for the blood drive? Because I mean, it was so great to have it here, but I mean, you can't have all that many people at once. So
I don't know what the attendance was for the blood drive, but we can find out in a couple of minutes. We can look at our library market stats. So please hold.
All right, so my pulling out what I did, and I'm sure I'll talk more about nominating committee things because we were crazy busy this month. But as just a regular old trustee / constituent of the city of Albany, I attended the Sewing Girls Tale. That there was a book that you read ahead of time, and there was a conversation with the author. Unfortunately, it was not well attended, but it was a fantastic event. It like, we sat there like talking to the author about like what he learned and what we saw, and so kudos to the library and to the crime victims folks. It was, I had a great time, and I thought it was a good and worthwhile event.
just kidding. I have one other thing. So I attended the Melrose Neighborhood Association meeting and was able to hear Andrea's presentation to them, and it was great. And I feel bad that it was like overshadowed because they were like in such a hurry to get to talk about the tax assessments. But thank you for doing that and going out into the community and reporting about all the things that the library is doing. We did talk about it a little bit more after you left, and everybody was really excited about that. But that also, I just want to give a shout out to the library for hosting those tax assessments sessions. It just kind of further seemed to me like how much the library is doing for the community, like making that available. So just thank you for that. Because it was quite the conversation at that meeting.
Else would like to report out? I'll say that I took advantage of the assessment workshop at the one on New Scotland. Yeah, and it was very helpful. I learned a lot. So that was very good. It was even easy parking. Yes. So thank you. All right, thank you for that. Do we have a report from policy and governance?
Not yet. Their meeting was March 28th. And I know that I think the chair was absent in at the portion of the April meeting that would have covered that. Actually, we haven't received reports from the nominating committee or the facilities committee yet. So those will come up at the next board meeting.
Do you still want us to report out? So without
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
just making sure.
Sure.
Nominating committee, I'm going to take a point of privilege and say it was done so well. I streamed it. There was humor. What I got was we have a hard choice as residents of the city of Albany. I'm just so happy to see the quality and the dedication of so many people who care about the library. So yay, you.
I literally like went home on this like warm fuzzy high. The candidates night was great, and did like just to have that many, just to, I guess, reiterate, but to have that many people like enthused and excited, just it was such a good warm fuzzy.
Would you like to give a
I was going to say the room was full for perspective for anyone unable to make it. So it's very cool.
Sure. We'll talk about nominating committee in general. As I mentioned, it was a busy month. We had two forums, information sessions for prospective candidates. We had one that was done in the evening at Arbor Hill, West Hill, and we had 7 people come and ask questions and learn about being trustees there. And then we did a morning session on a Saturday at Pine Hills, and we had 9 people come to that one. So we had 16, counting Kirsten, 16 potential candidates come and learn about the whole process and being on the board. Not everyone who is running attended one, and not everyone who attended one is running, but it was still really good. And we did have a brief meeting on Monday. I haven't gotten minutes to my team to read yet, so I'm sorry, that's on me. But it was a brief meeting, just making sure that we were all on the same page, getting ready for Tuesday, which was our big event. And again, my mistakes aside, I think it went really well, and I was very excited.
Facilities.
Yeah, meeting minutes forthcoming, but to summarize the event, we met on Wednesday, May 8th, in the afternoon. Present was myself, trustees Brzezinski and Macinski, as well as Director Nikolai and Head of Facilities, Adam Firebaugh. The purpose of our meeting was to discuss the fiscal year 2025 capital projects funding request, which we will touch on in new business later tonight, but essentially, our committee asked Andrea and Adam a lot of questions and requested that updates be made to the memo associated with the item on tonight's agenda. So the minutes will largely, I believe, reflect. And we asked for additional information. I believe that's a supplemental memo that we'll see tonight. So our meeting adjourned in about 45 minutes, but look forward to talking about the fiscal year 2025 project funding request later tonight.
Thank you. Personnel Committee.
Trustee West is absent tonight. But there was no committee meeting in any event. It's going to be rescheduled.
Easiest meeting ever. We're snapping through this. Sorry, Brigitte. I think this might break the record. I shouldn't jinx it. Arlene, will you give the UHLS liaison report?
Well, I have a very long report. I'm kidding. But it was a longer meeting than I've ever experienced with them. It was, but a very good meeting, and I'm going to miss that team. So we started out with news with regard to the state budget and how libraries made out. This was a very good year for libraries. You know, we've got increases across the board for everything except for student aid, and that remained level. But everything else was significant. So we're quite pleased with what happened in the budget for this year, this season coming up. The committee reports, the financial reports, the treasurer and purchase journal reports were all reviewed and approved by the board, and as was the amendment to the 2024 Upper Hudson Library System budget. Administration and Service Committee advised the trustees of their recommendations for awards that's going to be presented, and kudos to APL. I'm telling you, there was so much discussion about the period party. They absolutely loved it, hands down. And there were other trustees who had attended, who had participated in it. And so, thank you for the creativity and also the information, important information that was being shared. But whoever thought we would have a period party? But anyway, it was wonderful. So that was good. And we concluded the meeting in a conversation, a continuing conversation about what's going on with Schenectady County Library and our sister associations that they are affiliated with. So it was a lengthy conversation. A lot of concerns. We received report from our president and from Tim, the executive director. We got updates, and each trustee had an opportunity to go around and ask questions, express thoughts. In the end, we said okay about exploring things, but we know that this is a very delicate situation, and we're very concerned about the potential impact, however this thing is going. And there was also a consensus that more information was needed. But very thoughtful discussion that's going to evolve, I know. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to be there for the whole of it, but maybe I'll come back. And see what's going on. It's pretty much.
Thank you, Arlene. Does anybody have an overview of upcoming committee meetings? You mentioned some of them that are scheduled in the next.
Actually, I don't know of any that have been scheduled. The personnel committee will be scheduled as soon as possible, but there's no date yet.
Okay, thank you.
Nominating committee is excited to report that we do not have a scheduled upcoming meeting.
Thank you all. Andrea, will you please do the executive director report, please?
Certainly. So the first thing you'll see on this report for April is a beautiful picture of the entire staff who were able to attend on Staff Development Day on the 25th of April. That's when we close all 7 locations. Of course, that's a huge deal for any reason, but this was a positive reason to close all 7 branches. We always reserve this day each year to go over topics that staff voice as concerns that they would like to see addressed on Staff Development Day. This year, we had an introduction to collaborative proactive solutions, which is an approach to relationship building, which is so essential to what we do in terms of eventually being able to de-escalate situations that come up in the library. We also recognize staff who, I skipped that part, but we recognize staff who have been at APL for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15. We even had one person who celebrated their 20th anniversary this year. So we always take the opportunity to celebrate the longevity of staff who stay with APL. We had a team building session. We had sessions on various aspects of library work, including the upcoming migration to Office 365, which will also impact the board, and more on that later. But that migration is taking place Memorial Day weekend. We also had a wrap-up session on preventing and coping with burnout, which was provided through our employee assistance program. And we're extremely grateful to the board and to the community for understanding how critical it is to have these opportunities to learn as a team and to see each other as a team. With 7 locations, with full-time and part-time staff, with various hours across the district, it's impossible to get us all together except for Staff Development Day. So just want to acknowledge the support for that event. We had plenty of other highlights in April. The solar eclipse program probably eclipses all of the other highlights in terms of enthusiasm in the community and the turnout for those programs. Handed out many sets of glasses, as you know. And I know we talked about the eclipse a little bit at the April meeting because I think it had just happened at that time, but it's worth mentioning again that we did have a wonderful slate of programs to support the community's interest in solar clips, and we also celebrated jazz. We had a couple concerts around the system, and in some cases, sort of in the lobby space, which kind of filtered music throughout the branch. People really seem to enjoy concerts that take place in that way. So we're going to look at bringing more live music to the library. And we also, I also want to share sort of an of the moment update. So as you know, the Pine Hills elevator has been out of service since, I think it's been out of service since December, while we awaited a very large and significant part for the repair job. And I'm really pleased to announce that tomorrow the elevator will be functioning again. So that's a wrap. And my thanks to the facilities department and to our vendor for working diligently to make that repair happen. And my thanks to our users, our patrons who had to suffer without an elevator at our largest locations those 9 months. In terms of safety in the library, the committee met on the 17th. The safety committee is a coalition committee of 3 management members and 3 union members of the library staff. And each month we get together to discuss safety concerns in the library. This past month, we discussed the forthcoming head of safety position that we are bringing through the approval process. And in preparation for that new position, we held meetings throughout April with all of our community engagement clerks and branch managers throughout the system to talk about their questions and concerns about the new position and kind of look at what we're setting up for expectations around that position to change the structure of the library a little bit. We also followed up about a physical fight that occurred at Bach. A really large group of teens came in over a weekend, just kind of wreaked havoc, threw a chair. Anyway, now that we have this partnership with the city school district safety team, we were able to connect with them, talk about the event, share information, and we're kind of addressing it as a team, which is a really positive outcome in terms of getting the message across to the teens involved that we do have expectations for behavior in the library. And we also sent 3-month loss of library privileges letters to those teens that we knew as part of the event. So that's a downside for us in terms of safety in the library this past month. Plenty of activity throughout the library all month long. I always hesitate to share the whole of what has transpired in every single branch in terms of programs because it's totally overwhelming. But I did want to call out the Friends and Foundation news, which the Friends and Foundation held a fundraiser on the 10th of April featuring a local author, and they have a really lovely tradition of offering an author program each National Library Week as a way to fundraise and call attention to National Library Week, and we thank them for that. I also want to share with you that the Friends and Foundation are currently exploring grants that could continue to support our Keep Albany Connected digital inclusion program. The funding for that program runs out at the end of July. So that is something that we're facing together. We had a meeting with Albany Housing Authority, the Friends and Foundation. The Friends and Foundation have a grant writer that they actually hired back in January to start exploring grants that we could potentially apply for to keep this program going. But thus far, we haven't been able to identify a grant that is, likely for this. Sorry, potential spam coming through. So anyway, this is something that Albany Housing Authority is aware of. It's something that the Friends and Foundation are aware of. We have 13 sites that receive Wi-Fi service through this initiative. In Albany Housing Authority, we also have 3 parks that receive Wi-Fi through this program. So we're going to keep looking, but I am concerned that this program may not be able to continue grant funding.
You should access that very much. And pages. Okay, we should talk because that's not very much money for what it is you all are trying to do. I think I have some ideas about where you might be able to get it.
Okay, I'd love to talk.
Same. I also have a couple of ideas.
Okay, thank you. Ask and you shall receive. No, thank you very much. I will follow up with both of you um, and take whatever I learned back to the Friends of Foundation, who are ultimately responsible for the funding that will keep that program going. They pass funds to us so that bills can be paid, but it's very much a team effort. Couple of upcoming May programs to call out. We continue to offer those water and swimming safety courses at Delaware and Bach. We're offering a Chinese calligraphy workshop in conjunction with Asian American and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. We're offering breast health workshop, Hills, Menopause 101, which actually just took place last night. Excuse me. Some of these are in the past now, I realize. Home mushroom farming, of course, the budget vote coming up. We continue to promote the fact that that's happening on all of our channels, social media. Cherry blossom painting, another AAPI craft related event, Asian American Trivia Night, and finally creating the Man of the Future, a healthy masculinity workshop taking place at Arbor West Hill on May 29th, which is a unique program for us. I think it might be a first in terms of this partnership. So a lot of good stuff coming up. And at this point, I'll kind of turn it over to the board for any questions that you have about the rest of the April report.
Okay, so how did they do the water and swimming safety class without water?
It does involve some props and some video, I believe. But yeah, I can't tell you what the detailed curriculum is for that. I encourage you to go and check it out.
I want to thank you and your staff for all the work that they do. This is amazing. And thank you for going into so much detail. So we have an idea of the scope and the talent and the commitment and the resources you and your staff are giving to the city of Albany. So thank you.
All right, it is a lot of detail, I know, but worth it, I think, to include. I do want to call out the Programs and Partnerships Department. They, because we have a Programs and Partnerships Department now with 2 librarians and a department head, we're able to attend some of the events that we have not been able to attend in the past. And one example is the Take Back the Night event that happened and that we were able to table at for the first time ever. So we continue to uncover opportunities for outreach that we haven't been able to do before we had this new enhanced department. So thank you for your support for that, and we'll continue to increase our outreach efforts.
Do you want to talk about the monthly statistics?
Yes. Moment. So I'm happy to say that we continue to see an upward trend for programming attendance, with Bach, Delaware in particular, exceeding the April 2019 numbers, which, you know, we always compare, or we like to compare our recovery numbers to the pre-pandemic numbers because it shows us how we are recovering. In this case, we're kind of exceeding expectations, which is great. Our room use numbers are also staying steady across the district and performing above where they were in 2019. And thankfully, and this is kind of related back to the safety report, but we are seeing a downward trend of incidents, with 39 in April as compared to 61% more than that in March. And I, you know, there are all kinds of theories, but the strongest is probably the weather change.
Thank you. We're up to new business. The civil service job descriptions.
Okay, so unfortunately, the Personnel Committee did have to cancel the the May 9th meeting, I think that was scheduled for last week. So I did want to take this opportunity to go over what the next steps are for the creation of the 2 new titles for the library. The Personnel Committee is currently reviewing the two job descriptions that were approved by the City Civil Service Commission. And those two positions are Head of Library Security and Principal Clerk. I do want to point out that the Head of Library Security, while that is the official civil service title, our local title is still to be determined. So you'll see that in this document. The proposed hire rate for the Head of Library Security position, local title TBD, is $60,739. Proposed higher rate of the principal clerk is $40,719. These align respectively with the L2 salary scale and library assistant salary scale. These salaries are already factored into the fiscal 25 budget. And in order to create these two new positions without impact to that budget, we are eliminating a librarian 2 position here at Washington Avenue and a senior clerk position here at Washington Avenue. And I do want to give you some background on that. So historically, here at Washington Avenue, this branch has been managed by 2 librarian 2s who have acted as co-branch managers. One co-branch manager supervises the services staff of librarians and assistants, and the other co-branch manager has supervised the adult services librarians, circulation staff, and the community engagement clerk staff, respectively. So disproportionate groups of staff managed by these 2 co-managers. Going forward, Washington Avenue will be managed by 1 librarian 2 branch manager overseeing librarians, library assistants, and the principal clerk. The principal clerk supervises the clerks here at Washington Avenue. That will divide the supervisory workload here at Washington Avenue, in addition to the Head of Library Security, local title TBD, supervising the community engagement clerks who work here at Washington Avenue. That's 1 full-time, 2 full-time community engagement clerks and 1 part-time community engagement clerk. And they will also supervise the community clerks district-wide. Until we can make that transition, the head of branch services, Deanna DiCarlo, continues to function as interim Washington Avenue branch manager. And this has been the case since January of 2024. This is a very difficult job to do for anyone. And that's why it's really significant for the Personnel Committee and for the board, hopefully, to consider these 2 positions as soon as possible. It's right now she's kind of doing 3 different jobs. So I would just end with that, and the fact that the recommended motion that you'll see in June be the motion to approve the creation of 2 new titles for APL in accordance with the job specifications. And that concludes the update about these 2 positions. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to.
Is there a hope for the timeline of when to get these positions in place? Or does that all kind of depend on how quickly the Personnel Committee is able to meet and approve the, okay.
Yeah, the board approval of particularly the creation of positions as it relates to the budget. So that's, since these are 2 new positions, that's the linchpin. We'll be able to advertise as soon as that's done.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
While Trustee Goss sets up, can you please talk about the new service hours quarterly update?
Certainly. Okay, so I'll turn your attention to the memo that's related to this new service hours 2nd quarter update. The purpose of this report is to share information that was requested after the Q1 report that was given in February. And this is part of the year-long evaluation of the service hours that we put into effect on November 6th, 2023. And back in February, the board was provided with pretty minimal data. We wanted to start with just kind of the core data, that is the door count from the first 3 months of the new hours, November 2023 to January 2024. This Q2 report includes some qualitative data, which are June 2022 patron comments that pertained to hours and program times that were collected in the community survey as part of our strategic planning process. That survey resulted in about 550 responses, and we'll go over the qualitative data next, or as the first item, but I'll just go through this list. We have some programs data, which are the spreadsheets that you see on pages 3 to 9 with all of the programs that we've offered so far on Saturdays from November 2023 to April 2024, including the target audience, which was the specific request of the board in February to know kind of who we are programming for Saturdays, the location of the programs, titles of the programs, date and time, and attendance. And I do want to note that at this time, Sunday programs are not possible due to staffing levels at the Sunday locations. But we continue to look at how we can enhance that a little bit with some of the programs and partnership staffing that we have now. The next section will cover circulation data, comparison of average hourly weekday checkouts by branch and average hourly weekend checkouts by branch for the months of February to April. This comparison is limited to library material checkouts, so we didn't take into consideration navigator passes or any other transactions that would take place at our circulation desk. And finally, door counts, a 6-month comparison of cumulative weekly door counts by service area. And just for those who may not know, our service areas are 3 and comprise what we consider to be the central branches, east branches and west branches, central branches being Washington and Arbor West Hill, east branches being Delaware and Howe, and west branches being Pine Hills and Bob. And finally, I'll offer a summary statement wrapping it all together. So starting with the qualitative data, survey that was put out, and this was a little bit before my time, but this was part of the strategic planning process that took place through the spring and summer of 2022. And there wasn't a specific question about hours, but there were 4 open-ended optional questions. And one of those questions was, if APL could do one thing to improve programs or services, what would it be? And that was the question, the open-ended question that elicited the greatest number of responses that were about library hours and program times. And of those responses, and basically all the responses were categorized by theme. And so that's why you see parentheses after each of these, how many mentions there were in the open-ended responses. So longer expanded hours, we had 15 plus mentions, putting programs for toddlers and young children in evenings and on weekends, working families can attend, had 10 plus mentions. And third most frequent comment was more adult programs and offering them when working adults can attend, which received another 10 plus comments. So I wanted to just kind of pause here and see if you had any questions about qualitative data that we're offering here and how we.
May I ask about another account? Wi-Fi, which you should probably be able to get from your routers, and the physical computer use, where people come in and use the computers.
We can get that data, absolutely.
Thank you.
So turning your attention to the programs, and I know that this is a lot to look at, but the programs are ordered in terms of the date and time that they were offered. So you'll see the morning programs listed before the evening, or the afternoon programs. And I'll kind of cover the analysis of these programs in the summary statement, but you'll see a lot of story time, a lot of story times offered, a lot of kids activities, and some passive activities, including I shouldn't say passive, but like Dungeons and Dragons. So some gaming activities, some movies for adults. We are, still trying things out as far as what is going to fly and what's not going to fly in terms of Saturday programs. So a lot of this we've been learning from and kind of, adapting as we go along. And you'll see that the number of programs also increases as we move along through the months. simply because we've been, that was right around the time, I guess, December, January, but going into February, where we were actually building our programs and partnerships department. So we were hiring additional librarians and getting a team together to do some of this planning work. And you'll also see that the attendance changes over the course of the 6 months. But again, I'll get into that a little bit more during the summary statement. Moving on to the circulation data on page 10. This is a comparison of average weekday circulation by branch and average hourly weekend circulation by branch for the months of February to April. We chose February to April because it does take time for people to adjust, and we wanted to get kind of a better sense of what was happening once people actually learned about the hours, and then look at the whole of that circulation by branch. So that's why you're seeing what you're seeing there. And in terms of the door counts on page 11, again, that's cumulative from the beginning of the new hours to the present.
Can I ask a quick question about the circulation counts?
Definitely.
So does that include digital media, or is it only physical items?
It's just physical items. Yeah. Digital media would be interesting, but not necessarily relevant for the purposes of this report.
Yeah, so I was just processing things.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. The digital library is never closed. In terms of move on to the summary statement now, so let's kind of tie it all together. So when the first quarterly report was shared with the board, there was a request to review the patron survey data that we gathered. And like I said, the top most frequent suggestions that pertain to hours and program times were expanding library hours, offering programs for children and toddlers in the evenings and on weekends, and offering more adult programs for working adults can attend. And the timeframes that we offer, we offer evening programs, of course, during the week, but we had never been able to offer weekend programs due to the staffing levels that existed before we changed hours. So a goal of the new hours was to meet those programming needs of working families by achieving those adequate staffing levels at our 3 Saturday hours locations. And so we were able to begin offering those regular Saturday programs. Of the 165 Saturday programs that we offered, 60% were created for children and caregivers. So early literacy continues to be a priority as we look at building out this program series on Saturdays. And story times are a core part of what we do at the library. It's a core part of how we support parents and caregivers in fostering the love of reading and fostering great reading habits in kids. The average attendance on a weekday at story time is 14 children plus caregivers, and the average attendance that we're seeing so far at a weekend story time is 17. So that's, small difference, but worth mentioning. In addition, we're seeing that the attendance at overall has gradually trended up as time goes on. I do want to call out one troubling finding, which is that story time attendance at Howe on the weekends has been extremely low. And program attendance overall at Howe on the weekends has been extremely low. And we're considering this to be a real call to action. We have to figure it out. We have to do more outreach, promotion, and selling of programs at Howe. We're not doing enough to connect to the community, to connect the neighborhood with the programs that are happening at the library. There is a dedicated Dungeons and Dragons following, which is great, but it's small. We've also seen interest in craft music programs at Howe, but we need to do more. It's just not, whatever we're doing in terms of outreach, it's just not quite working. So we're dedicated to figuring that out and using time next quarter to do that. So when we control for the home buyer fair attendance, which was a crazy big event here at Washington Avenue that attracted 375 people on April 27th, when we take that number out, we're seeing an average of 78 people each week at Saturday programs across the library, district, and district. In terms of circulation data, February through April, excuse me, that shows that on average, a greater volume of library materials are checked out during the average weekend hour and on an average weekday hour, which is not necessarily a huge shock, but it's interesting to see that play out. Weekend mornings are interesting like that because they're new to Howe and Pine Hills. Washington Avenue Saturday morning checkouts kind of mirror weekday morning checkouts and have for a while. At Howe, there's a very small uptick in Saturday morning checkouts over weekend morning checkouts. At Pine Hills, we're seeing a much more dramatic impact with 90% more checkouts on an average Saturday morning than on an average weekday morning. And at our Sunday locations, average weekend checkouts per hour also exceed average weekday checkouts per hour, with 46% more at Delaware, 50% more at our West Hill, and 70% at Wow. And probably the most interesting, well, I shouldn't say that. Door counts are part of the picture, not the be all and end all, but they have been trending up since the new hours went into effect. And we continue to see those net gains in library visits on the weekend from Q1 to Q2. So heading into the third quarter of the new hours, May through July, we'll be obviously building on this, incorporating other kinds of data like Wi-Fi sessions or computer sessions. And I do want to make a point about the survey. The more I thought about it and consulted with staff and with Upper Hudson staff about the timing of this survey, there was advice to do it in September when the community has had access to the libraries on Sundays, the new Sunday hours at Sunday locations. So doing the survey in September makes more sense for that reason. More people are also around in September to fill out the survey. There's a lot of, comings and goings over the course of the summer. It's a little bit hard to reach people. So I'm looking at structuring the survey now. We're going to get help from our Upper Hudson colleagues to do that. But it's going to be very important to hear from the community about how these hours are working and whether and what more people want to see when it comes to services overall, including on the weekends.
Any questions, comments after that very detailed report? Thank you, Andrea. Capital projects funding request.
Okay, so actually, all right. So as Trustee Barnum stated earlier, the Facilities Committee met, and Adam Firebaugh, the head of facilities, and myself met with the committee to discuss 4 projects for the upcoming year. 1 is the Washington Avenue asbestos abatement. 2 is Washington Avenue pipes renovation. 3 is vehicle replacement, and 4 is domestic hot water system upgrades at various locations. I do want to sort of start this off by saying that the capital fund balance currently stands at 1.8 million approximately. The total request that we are bringing to you this evening is for 503,478, with 288,445 of that reimbursable through a Division of Library Development grant for the Washington Avenue pipes renovation project. So the total impact to the capital fund balance would be $215.30, excuse me, oh my God, $215,033 there once we receive the reimbursement. So I'll just go through these one by one. The asbestos abatement portion of the capital funding request is a little bit nuanced. So first I'll describe the project as it pertains to the following Washington Avenue pipes renovation project, because the two are connected. So before the capital project, Washington Avenue pipes renovation project can begin, the abatement had to happen. So the asbestos containing mudded fittings were actually removed from the basement storage room and maintenance room pipes that are in need of renovation. Asbestos abatement is not eligible for DLD grant funding, which is why this request is outside of the Washington Avenue pipes renovation DLD funded project. And a total of 30 fittings from the maintenance room and 20 fittings from the storage room were addressed. And so that totals 42 fittings that have been abated at this point. project posed no threat to health and safety of staff or the public. It took place in the basement and was adequately, protected. We followed all of the applicable city codes and postings that are required of building occupants. So with that done, the capital funds for that abatement were actually approved by the board in 2021. At that time, work had begun in the Washington Avenue basement to do some improvements to various areas of the basement. And at that time, it was not known how much asbestos or how much abatement would need to be done. So there was a request made and the funds were approved for the purpose of asbestos abatement, but it was more than we needed at that time. So there are funds in the capital fund balance for asbestos abatement. I'll get to the details of that funding for the final statement, but any questions about that before I move on? So the Washington Avenue Pipes renovation project, which is scheduled for later this summer, was originally presented to the Facilities Committee in September and to the board in September because there's a step that involves board approval at the early stage when we have to submit the paperwork for this grant. So Washington Avenue's existing piping and insulation is actually original to this building. So it's 62 years old. It no longer provides adequate R value, which is the measure of insulation's ability to resist heat traveling through it due to deterioration and mold. It's necessary to renovate the trouble areas and prevent further issues, such as possible building closure due to the pipe failure. So completing this work will secure the stability of the plumbing operation and the new piping and insulation provide increased energy savings and prevent condensation from forming and dripping throughout these areas. So of the total project cost, I'm really happy to share that 90% of it is reimbursable. At first, we didn't know if it was going to be 75% or 90%, but we got word just last month that it's going to be 90%. So that's news and it's welcome news to us. Any questions about the Washington Avenue Pipes renovation project? Okay, and then we have another vehicle replacement, which will take place. I mean, it'll start as soon as the funds are approved, basically, because the van is done. It is a well-used. We maintain a fleet of 4, and 2 of those are trucks and 2 are vans. Pickup trucks kind of do double duty because they are fitted with plows during the wintertime. Our 2011 Chevy Express van is the van that's on the chopping block. It has had a lot of mechanical failures, rear wheel drive concerns, high service repairs and costs, and a lot of wear and tear in the last 13 years. So we use it for daily travel to all branches for supply deliveries and to haul equipment around. So replacing that Chevy Express van Ford Transit will help us haul floor maintenance equipment for project work from branch to branch. It has all-wheel drive for winter travel, which is safer than the previous van's rear-wheel drive, especially during the weather. And then that all-wheel drive also provides us greater flexibility for the hauling needs. We're also going to fit it out a Tommy Gate Max, save some of the. We can work smarter, not harder, and shoving equipment around. The quote that we have currently is $60,920. We expect that it is going to come in slightly under that because we are working the dealer from the state contract. So we're asking for this amount, knowing that it's going to come in a little under this. Any questions about the van? And domestic hot water system upgrades. Timeline for that is the fall. Boiler systems at Washington Avenue, Bach, Delaware, and Arbor Hill are all past their useful life expectancy, believe it or not. Even the new or the renovated branches, the new branch of Arbor Hill West Hill and the renovated branch, Delaware, branch Bach, they all need new boilers. So current setup stores hot water and burns gas fuel around the clock to maintain hot water in the tanks. And those will eventually fail as the systems at Howe and Pine Hills failed in 2022. So we're getting ahead of that by upgrading to these on-demand hot water systems now. That's at a cost of $81,468. So unless there are questions about the hot water system upgrades, wrap it up. So on board approval tonight, 462,883 will be transferred from the general checking account to the capital checking account. And like I said, the 40,595 that's earmarked for that asbestos abatement is not included in that transfer request because those funds were previously transferred in 2021. And that was the project that was actually approved with was the HVAC and RT air handler installation project with an eye to future abatement funding needs. The impact on the capital fund balance, therefore, will be a decrease of 174,438. And yeah, I already spoke about the reimbursement. So that's the total decrease to the capital fund balance.
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
It came from committee with a unanimous recommendation, so I believe it needs a second. Correct?
I believe so.
Would you read the motion, please?
So the motion from committee was, the facilities committee was to approve the transfer of $462,883 from the general checking account to the capital checking account for the purpose of completing the 2025 capital projects.
May we have a second, please? Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Get that van off the road.
We heard some horror stories in our committee meeting, so I'm glad that this is going forward.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. I look forward to taking this news back to the facilities team.
Do you need another swig of water before we talk about the after hours meeting?
Probably. All right. I did want to cover this because we had an unfortunate incident, and I want to make this process clear so that the board understands how these meetings are supported, because there are a lot of moving parts. And our intent is to always avoid issues and problems, but sometimes they happen. And I just want to make this process clear. So the booking of after hours meetings takes place outside of the library market online booking system, which we have for all of our other meetings and programs that happen during library hours. So to book an after hours meeting, patrons use an online form that we created, and then our administrative assistant receives an email alert when that request is received. Right now, we can support one after hours meeting district-wide per evening for a maximum of 4 after hours meetings per week. And that's because we have very limited evening facility staff. Right now, we only have one custodian run around and address all of our branches. And a staff member absolutely has to be on site to both open the facility for the meeting and to secure the facility once the after hours meeting is ended. When the admin assistant determines that a request can be accommodated for an after hours meeting, confirmation goes out to the patron who made the request. The meeting is manually entered into the online system for statistical purposes. And that requires a staff override because the system says, wait, we're closed. What are you doing? And so we have to override that and enter the room booking. The event is also added to an after hours internal calendar, which is just Google Calendar, and a calendar invitation sent to the branch managers so that they're aware that the meeting is happening at their branch on that evening, so that they can pass the word to any staff who might be there when the meeting opens, because sometimes our after hours meetings start before we close. So an after hours meeting may start at like 5:45 or 5:30 and then go past closing time. And in that case, the staff just, open the room with folks who have reserved it, and then facilities staff member would come and lock the building at the time that the meeting was stated to be ending by the patron who made the reservation. Anyway, a work ticket is submitted to the facilities department, and the after hours meeting duty is assigned to that member of our evening custodial team. And then on the day of the meeting, reminder goes out, facilities foreman to the custodial team member who is taking care of that after hours meeting. So that's the kind of the soup to nuts on how these after hours meetings are supported. And I just want to invite any questions that anyone has about how that works.
I have a question. I have a question. How far in advance or how much lead time do you need to do all of this to have an evening meeting? So somebody can't say on Monday that I want it on Wednesday?
Actually, I'm not totally sure. Erica, can you confirm? 24 hours.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Quarterly board evaluation. I don't have any information on that, so maybe next meeting.
Yeah. I think President Pryor had some feedback, had collected some feedback from other board members, and I'm sure she'll be addressing that next month.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. I don't believe there's a need to go into executive session. So may I have a motion to adjourn at 7:01 PM?
I motion to adjourn.
May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
If I were to